My name is Jakub Kabala. I teach history and digital studies at Davidson College. And today I'll be speaking about using computational methods of hierarchical clustering and machine learning to predict and identify unknown authors in corpora of medieval Latin texts. So I will talk today about an application of computational methods to a problem in the humanities. And the problem in the humanities is a very old one. It's about authorship attribution. And as a background, I'm a medievalist by training, and so I'll be talking about texts written in Latin. So the problem is that we have lots and lots of texts that come from the Middle Ages in a variety of languages, Latin, Greek, Old English, Old Church Slavonic. And for thousands of these texts, we simply don't know who wrote them. And the question then is, can computational methods help us determine who wrote texts? The case study, I'll see that, maybe I'll make this bigger. The case study I'll talk to you today about is that of the so-called Gallus Anonymous and the Monk of Lido. The Monk of Lido is the name that we have given to a text composed in the early 12th century called the Translation of St. Nicholas to Venice. It's about 12,000 words long, and it was written most likely between 1102 to 1108 in Venice. The second text, Gallus Anonymous, who wrote the first chronicle of Polish history, the Deeds of the Princes of the Poles. The text is about twice as long, written about 5 to 10 years later in Poland. And I've given you a map here just to give you an orientation of place. Yellow dots correspond to the life as we know it of Gallus. Red dots correspond to the life as we know it of the monk. And the question is, and I can get into this later if you're interested, are these two anonymous authors one and the same author? And there's been a long debate in the field of history that saying, yes, they are, no, they're not. Well, so what is the case? I have been working on an authorship attribution package to work on problems such as this. So we need to put together some corpora of texts that are similar within which we can compare the two. So luckily for us medievalists, we have lots and lots of texts from the Middle Ages available in digital form. So it's a matter of downloading those. And I won't show you the details of how I import them and so on, but I'll just show you their makeup. Here we have I'll make this smaller. The first corpus, and I'm testing the similarity between these two texts in 4 different corpora. The first corpus contains 39 texts, and here is a mixture of different genres. So we have theological works, we have historical works, we have letters, all different kinds of genre and all different kinds of word lengths. So the longest text in this corpus here is over 150,000 words. The shortest one is about 10,000 words or so. Second text second corpus contains all of these 39 texts, but broken up into roughly equal length segments. And the idea there is to see there you see so here we have the text in the corpus with its length in words. The idea there is to test, does the length of a text make a difference in accuracy of attribution? Third corpus, here I've taken this corpus, what I'm calling corpus 4, and I apologize for the numbering system, but it's the way I've been doing the research, and it's just too complicated for me to change it. Corpus 3 it's a subset of corpus 4 where I have controlled for genre. So it's a smaller corpus, about 69 texts total. Here we have roughly same lengths, same genre. But I call this unbalanced one because some of the authors, for example, William of Malmesbury, has many representative texts in here, whereas others have just a couple representative texts. And to solve for that problem, and that's a problem that comes up in machine learning applications, and I'll talk about that in a second. This is a corpus 6, a subset of the final one, in which I've balanced out the author classes. So here, every author has about 2 to 3 texts, representative texts, about 12,000 words long. Let's see if this works any better. Okay, so there you see the 4 different corpora that I'm interested in. And these are all taken from 11th and 12th century Latin prose. Next step then is to extract features and is to translate all of these texts into some kind of numerical form, which we can then compare mathematically. For this experiment, I've just taken most frequent words. So here, and this is a function that I've included in this package I'm building, calculate, say, the 250 most frequent words in an entire corpus. So if you do that in the third corpus, just to give you a sense, you get a list, 250 words. These are all so-called function words, the ands, the indeeds, therefores, and whatnot. Those words that we use most frequently, but we use without really thinking about them, and they turn out to be some of the best indicators of authorship. Next step then is for every text in a corpus to calculate the frequencies of occurrence of those 250 most frequent words in each member text. And what that produces then is something like this, where here we have every text you see on the left here corresponds to a long list of frequencies. And I've given you the words. These are the frequencies of this particular word in this particular text. The next step and final step is to prepare for cross-validation. And this is because it turns out that you can check your work and also even improve accuracy if you repeat the same process, not for entire text segments, but if you first sample out a random number of words from each text segment, and then calculate the frequencies of the most frequent words in those random so-called bags of words. And here I've done that for bags of words taken from each text, 5,000 long, so 5,000 word bags taken from each text. Then when we calculate the frequencies of those most frequent words, we get something similar. And here, so for every corpus, we have 10 different samplings. And I'm doing this in order to validate the results we get later on. And again, each one of these 250 frequencies long. Okay, then turn out there are two broad approaches to dealing with this. So now we have lots of data in numerical form, and we can do something with it. Two broad approaches are distance measures and machine learning approaches. Distance methods. First, we can import the hierarchical clustering package that comes with Mathematica, and then visualize the distances between our texts in a dendrogram. The way these work, so here, for example, this is just a little helper function I wrote, but we're looking at distances in corpus 6 as determined by whichever one of these distance measures we select. Euclidean distance, Great Euclidean, chessboard Manhattan, and so on, all the way down to Bray-Curtis distance. And these are 8 distance measures for numerical data that come with Mathematica. And so you can see 2 things on this dendrogram. One is that the closer to the right of the plot 2 texts are connected, that means the closer they are in the lower the distance, the smaller the distance between them. You can also see that based on how different texts, how close they are on this y-axis. And indeed, if you take a look, you see that texts written by the same author, and the author name you see as the first element of the label there, do tend to cluster together. So these 3 segments written by Lutbrand cluster, these 3 segments written by Malaterra cluster, etc. The 2 halves of Gallus and the 1 half and the segment of the monk also cluster together here. And in fact, some of the distance measures cluster or indicate that the distance between the monk's text and the first half of Gallus's text is smaller than the distance between the 2 halves of Gallus. So that's interesting. If you do that, though, for big corpora, it becomes difficult to, so this is the 4th corpus where we have 116 text segments. You see the same pattern. Authors cluster together. but it's difficult to interpret this. So is there a way of measuring accuracy then? And for accuracy with this method, I simply mean how effective are the 8 distance measures at placing a text in a corpus as closest to another text written by the same author, that we definitely know was written by the same author. When we do this, we get neat results. So this is just a tabulation of these results for you. In corpus 0, which is, again, varying lengths and varying genres, we get the highest accuracy rate of about 77%. So out of 27 possible accurate attributions, there are 21. This goes up in the other corpora to about 98%. In corpus 3, same 98%, best performing one, corpus 4, and 100% accuracy for these within this corpus, of course, in corpus 6. A couple things to see here, just altogether. The chessboard distance is uniformly, it appears, ill-suited to determining authorship. The best performing distance across the board here seems to be the Bray-Curtis distance and the Manhattan distance, which are mathematically related. Cross-validation, doing the same process on each of those bags of words taken within every corpus, confirms these results, and it doesn't seem to be a fluke. So if especially within corpus 4, notice also the difference between 0 and 4. 0 and 4 contain the same words. Corpus 0 contains these texts that are, some are 150,000 words long, some are 10,000 words long. Corpus 4 contains those same texts, but split up into segments. Notice what happens to the accuracy there. It shoots up to about 97.5% there, meaning genre of a written work is not a hindrance to determining or to attributing authorship within the corpora. The length of the text is. So that's an interesting, to me, result. So this works pretty well. How do Gallus and Monk do here? Well, within corpus 0, the least well-performing corpus, the text closest to Monk, according to 7 out of the 8 measures, is indeed Gallus. The one outlier is the poorly performing chessboard distance. And in the reverse, the text closest to Gallus is the Monk's text. Again, with a couple exceptions here. This is confirmed also in the other corpora. So we always have, we have a pretty clear signal here, at least within the corpora, that these two texts are really close to each other. Subsampling also confirms this to be the case. So out of 10 subsamples in corpus 0, the best performing distances without fail attribute Gallus to Monk, and so on. Here we see also 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10. I will, let's see, I will skip this now and move to the machine learning as an approach. So that's one approach, distances. The other approach is machine learning. And I learned quite a lot today, earlier in the afternoon, about the deeper possibilities of mathematics as machine learning. So this may seem a little rudimentary, but it's still incredibly effective. The basic idea here is we treat authors as classes. And we treat the frequency lists as items that we can assign to a class, thereby using the classify function to train a classifier. One method involved here is known as leave one out cross-validation, which I'll just play these out. The process takes out, say, the very first one of these frequency lists, builds a classifier with the remaining frequency lists, in which this frequency list will be assigned to class Cosmos, this one to class Cosmos, this one to class Galbert, etc., all the way down the line. Then it takes out the second one and builds a class of and trains classifies a machine using the training set consisting of all the remaining ones, etc., all the way down the line. So here we have 39 different texts, so we'll get 39 different training sets. The results of this are also pretty good. Here we see what happens to full texts. And here's the corpus 4. What is the first closest author class to which this text belongs? And the method I've been using here is logistic regression, which proves to be very robust for multi-class problems, such as this one, where it's not just is an author, is not an author, but there are many different types of many different classes of authors. So if you look down the line here, by and large, authors' texts get attributed to the correct author class, all the way down the line, with a few exceptions. Here, our monk gets attributed to class Gallus with 80% or so certainty. The results are a bit more easily digestible if we look at the cross-validation results. And so here, I wonder if I can make this smaller. Yes. So here, for every one of these bags of words, we repeated this method, and the SS1, SS2, that's just subsample 1, subsample 2. And we see that 10 out of 10 times, this particular text was attributed to the correct author class. 10 out of 10 times, and you can see on the right, this particular text was attributed to the right author class, and so on. The ones where we see absolutely no correct attributions are, by and large, the ones where we would expect no correct attributions, because if you notice, if we take out this text from the corpus, then there is no remaining text belonging to the author class Cosmos with which in the training set. So once we pass in an unknown author, there simply is no possibility of correct attribution. The results get much better, again, in the later corpora. So, and you can see that here. So how exactly effective is this method? It turns out it is just as effective on full texts as the distance method, and it's still more effective than the distance method when you do bags of words. So even within corpus 0, the wildest and corpus of the 4, we get 83% accuracy of attribution using the bags of word method. What does this give us as results for the case study that I've proposed? The monk's text does seem to be classified as Gallus 4 out of 4 times, and without fail also in the subsampling. Conclusions, it seems that distance measures and machine learning algorithms, and in particular, the Bray-Curtis distance and logistic regression, prove remarkably good at identifying Latin authors on the basis of most frequent word frequencies. I mentioned the second conclusion earlier, which is that text length within a corpus, uniform text length, is a much more important for accurate attribution than is genre. As long as you have equal text length in a corpus, you'll get good results. If you have mixed genre, that doesn't make a difference. There seems little doubt based on this that Gallus and Monk are one and the same. Again, however, in the context of the corpora that I've assembled. So the next steps, out of many, but one of the major next steps would be to broaden and enlarge, to make the corpus much bigger, to see what kind of results we get when we take, say, if it's possible, all texts, all Latin texts that survive from the early 12th century or first half of the 12th century. You can also try different parameters, so different sizes of bags of words for subsampling, different numbers of most frequent words. We can also try a whole series of different features altogether. So instead of counting words, count character sequences, character engrams, parts of speech, syntactical features, and so on. So thanks for listening.